Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with a discussion about the 6.1.2 hotfix for Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires, which mainly affects Kislev, and there are things that Creative Assembly has stated they recognize as issues and they're working on addressing those in a future hotfix or a future patch, but most of the changes in this hotfix do affect Kislev, though of course there are other things for different races, different characters. So let's talk about what Creative Assembly has changed with this hotfix and how that affects Kislev and what more they can do and what they have also stated that they will be doing going forward. So first and foremost, some of the big changes do affect Ataman, specifically Ataman experience. First and foremost, the Ataman estate now is granting 1,000 experience per turn for Atamans deployed in this province, and the income cost of this building has been reduced from minus 100% to minus 50% provided you have an Ataman in the location. So less of an economic penalty and more experience gained from that. That is good, and it does seem like Creative Assembly really wants to push the Ataman system in more ways than one. On top of that, they've also changed the amount of experience you're going to gain from wall structures. So if you build, say, the lower city ramparts, you're gaining up to 300 experience per turn for Atamans deployed in the province. And then resource buildings go from 100 experience, 200 experience to 300 experience per turn from tier 1 to tier 3. So there's a good amount of experience to be gained with Atamans. And that is good because Atamans are pretty damn great for Kislev. They do offer some very substantial benefits, including things like Groundbreaker or Ambassador. It's a bit of a shame about Warden because there's not necessarily that many benefits in getting Warden compared to Groundbreaker and Ambassador. But still, it is a significant improvement in terms of experience gained for Atamans for Kislev. Now, other things that they have addressed with this specific patch does relate to unit availability, specifically with Ice Guard with Glaives. So this used to be a tier 5 unit. That now this structure only has one tier. You can get to that tier 4. It increases your hero capacity for Frost Maidens by 1. It also gives you both Ice Guard version, so the sword version and the glaive version. This makes sense because glaives are not necessarily an upgrade compared to the sword version. There are situations where you want to use swords, there are situations where you want to use glaives. You don't just want to spam one variant or another. So this makes sense, and it also helps you achieve a greater hero capacity for Frost Maidens. Though to be clear, that was already improved for Kislev, which with their rework, because we got the ministerial housing, which increased hero capacity for Frost Maidens. But overall, we're getting more Frost Maidens, we're getting more Ataman experience, we're incentivized to build walls more because of the significant amount of experience. They've also merged some buildings, so all of that is very well and good with respect to what they've done for Kislev, certain bug fixes, certain other changes in terms of research benefits that units get from that kind of research as well. So overall, pretty solid improvement for Kislev with this hotfix, but there are other things that they're looking to address. They've also changed invocations and the requirement of public order or control that they require, or rather the amount of devotion you are required to have in order to use invocations. It used to be that in order to use invocations, you needed to have over 50 devotion in a province. Now you can use invocations at a devotion level of 25. So this doesn't just mean that invocation for settlements, it also means invocations for armies. Now it still costs 50 devotion to use these invocations, so you're still going to pay that price, but that's not necessarily a downside, because if you go from 25 to minus 25, so if you go from 25 to minus 25, you're also gaining that kind of experience benefit with Atamans deployed in a province. So this incentivizes you as a player to use these invocations more, whereas previously, especially on higher difficulties, there was not really much of a reason to use them unless you had a significant amount of devotion. There was a way of gaining a significant amount of a devotion in in a specific province. There's an upgrade over here through Spiritual Conquest that gives you 100 devotion for newly captured settlements in Chaos Wasteland climates. So you could use a bunch of invocations in these kind of settlements, and you could also get the significant benefit of nullifying climate penalties. I do believe on the subject of devotion that one of the things Creative Assembly should do is, it's all well and good to have the player losing devotion when you're gaining to a high level of it. That's fine. But one of the things I do believe they should remove completely from the game is the difficulty level modifier of control, public order, devotion, whatever system you want to call it at. But if you're playing on legendary difficulty, get -8. This is annoying to deal with. It's not a great system, and it just pushes you down a not so great path. So even if we're playing on legendary as things stand, we will be using more invocations, but it's still a frustration dealing with that kind of difficulty level modifier, and I do believe that Creative Assembly should completely remove this from the game. I don't think it would have that necessarily a really bad effect on the game from that perspective. At least that's my view on that subject. Other things that they've talked about that they're looking to address, specifically with Castalton or Katrin and how they gain supporters if they confederate the other one. Absolutely, that is an issue, and I think that Castalton and Katrin do need a better way of gaining supporters. Maybe they could gain some more supporters for their own side, and maybe some benefits for having a higher level of supporters for their own side. Like if you're playing Katrin, maybe you should have benefits to your campaign if you have a high level of the Ice Court. Of course, with the penalties for the Orthodoxy, fair enough on that subject. But just a thought, or just in general, a better way of gaining supporters across the board for both Katrin and Castalton. Because as things stand right now with the supporter system, the reality is, if you're playing Katrin and Castalton, you're just going to flat out get far less supporters during the course of a campaign than Boris Ursus and Astankia. So I do hope that Creative Assembly does address that situation. I understand that maybe Katrin should not gain as many supporters or as many supporter tiers with Orthodoxy as, say, Castalton, Boris Ursus, or Astankia. I get the system there, but it just creates a significant penalty in your campaign if you're playing Katrin and Castalton. Another thing that they're looking to address is how if you gain over 100 supporters on the end turn, you can actually only gain one boon. So basically, you'll fill up a bar if it's empty or wherever it is. Let's say, on the end turn over here, I'll only get, if I were to end the turn right here, I would get to 100, I would get the tier benefits, but I would not fill up this bar at all. So that is a bug that does hopefully get addressed going forward by Creative Assembly, and they've stated that they're looking at that. Another issue was with regards to the launcher. For me personally, ever since 6.1 has come out, I've had severe performance issues with the launcher. It just seems to move very slowly. It's constantly invalidating my mods, forcing me to reactivate them. And I'm not using some crazy mods, really. I'm using like things like Better Camera Mod, Toggle Fog of War, a couple of things, right? Just relatively minor stuff over here. I'm not looking at campaign overhauls or anything like that. In fact, I've deliberately disabled those, even unsubscribed from them, because of the issues I've had with the launcher. So hopefully that is something that Creative Assembly will be addressing going forward, because I understand that they want to remove the launcher altogether. Perfectly understandable. I think mods should maybe be enabled in-game, like we've seen with Age of Mythology, as opposed to just having that console launcher situation to deal with. So I don't think they're moving in the right direction with that, but it's just not in a great situation at the moment. But yeah, one of the things I would like Creative Assembly to address going forward with regards to Kislev is that imbalance between the Legendary Lords, Astankia, Boris Ursus, Katrin, Castalton, because it is just that situation of like, yeah, Boris Ursus and Astankia have much better campaigns. Another thing that I believe would be good to add over here, one way or another, would be the idea of guaranteed confederation with the other Legendary Lords of Kislev. Because I would certainly take confederation with, say, if I'm playing Dominion, I would vastly prefer to get the Confederation with Katrin as a guarantee, as opposed to, research rate for each settlement. I mean, it's a useful benefit, but like considering, noble administrators, I would gladly take on guarantee Confederation with Katrin over there, for instance, or hierarchy with Castalton, compared to some of the benefits that are available here. It would especially be great in terms of being able to get a Stankia in a campaign if you're not playing her, because you end up in this kind of situation as Kislev if you're playing Kislev, even if the Confederation with Stankia would not give you any of the territory she holds, it would just give her as a Legendary Lord. It would still be great, because right now, if I want to get the Stankia in this campaign, I have to sail all the way here, find Morathi, cause a rebellion, revive her faction, trade her territory. So it isn't a great dynamic of a campaign. I can do it. I will do it. And Stankia is absolutely worth confederating, but I do think that that system would serve Kislev very, very well. It absolutely has served the dwarves exceptionally well, that they have this idea of guaranteed confederation. I do think Kislev would benefit from such a system as well, one way or another, regardless of how they do it. Even if you don't gain territory very far away, I don't think it would make necessarily sense, like if you're playing a campaign as Boris versus Katrin Consultant to get, territory in Agaron. You've got other focuses on your campaign, you've got other shit to deal with, so I don't think it's important, but I do think getting a Stankia as a Legendary Lord would be really good to have that in a campaign, one way or another. And it shouldn't be a thing where you eliminate the ability of Diplomatic Confederation, so I think Diplomatic Confederation should stay in the game for Legendary Lords. I think that serves its purpose. But I do also believe that some system of guaranteed confederation through maybe the supporter system, maybe for something else, maybe for research even, would be really good to have for Kislev. Those would be the things I would like to see with regards to how Kislev works right now. Another thing that I would personally like to see, admittedly, I do believe genuinely that having your only artillery option locked behind tier 4 is not especially great. It just there's ways of handling it, to be sure. There's ways of handling it, like you can make do with allied artillery, to be sure, on that subject. Like in this campaign, like I've been playing this campaign, I've gotten cannons from Malachi. I could get cannons from, Hellstorm rocket batteries and cannons from Carl and all that kind of stuff. So there are ways of handling it, absolutely, those kind of alliances. And you do get benefits with regards to allies through the supporter system. So, there are systems in place, right? There's absolutely systems in place, and it's kind of hilarious to think about, getting cannons or artillery or thunder barges with the 25% reload time reduction. That's kind of a bit crazy when you're thinking about that situation. But still, I assume that's how it does work. I haven't really looked at the stats to tell you exactly if that is absolutely how it works. So maybe we should look at the dwarves. Let's see the cannons that they have. Let's see those kind of cannons. So if we look at missile strength, okay, so it does actually affect. It does work properly, thankfully. I just wasn't looking at those details, right? Because generally speaking, Kislev has a very good unit roster. So usually allied recruitment is kind of unimportant. What kind of units would I want to get from allies? Especially the natural allies of Kislev Dwarves Empire in particular. Very damn little, I gotta tell you. You don't need cavalry, because you have it. You don't need range units, because you have plenty of good range units, including gunpowder units. I mean, I guess Grudge Rakers and, Iron Drakes. Iron Drakes would be a thing. But considering the limitations on how many units you can have for allied recruitment, I'd rather get gyrocopters with brimstone guns and artillery and maybe organ guns as well through allied recruitment. It would be nice to have a benefit where you can just recruit units in one turn for allied recruitment as opposed to halting an army for the sake of it, but you can always just recruit a lord over here and get that done through other means, right? In a campaign. Still, I do think that Creative Assembly has done a great job with the Kislev rework. I'm glad that they're working on improving the balance of it, fixing various issues, and hopefully they will address even more issues going forward with regards to some of the problems that still exist. Like the siege situation, as an example, the imbalance between legendary lords, the lack of artillery. That would be about it. Like, if they fix that lack of artillery situation, like, again, Kislev's roster is really, really good. Undeniably so. Like, maybe we could talk about how Wing Lancers are completely meaningless to recruit in a campaign compared to Griffin Legion, but it's a tier 4 unit. No, it's not a tier 4 unit, because in every fucking Kislev campaign you want to get Prague as quickly as possible, because it's an exceptionally beneficial settlement to get, and it's pretty easy to get it, so you get Griffin Legion. So maybe they should perhaps address that kind of imbalance between Griffin Legion and Wing Lancers, but that would be about it. Costine signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. Stay tuned for more.